Welcome to the Eye on Annapolis Local Business Spotlight. There are thousands of locally owned businesses in the area, some small and some large. Some you may know and others you don't. But one thing they all have in common is a great story, and we want to share it with you. Join us every Saturday as we talk to the founders, the owners, and the managers of local businesses you have come to know and love, and those you will come to know and love. Now here's your host, John Frenay, with this week's Local Business Spotlight.
Well, I think this might be the earliest recording we've ever done, but we're going in. And before we start off, we're here to talk with Save Our Trees. And before we get into it, I want to point out Susan Wheatley, who is here with us, and say, darn you, because last time we had this, you said, once you see this problem, you can't unsee it. Mm-hmm. Okay. And we talked a little more than a year ago. And I swear, every time I drive down the road, and I did check out your front yard to make sure, and I'm seeing the invasive ivy absolutely everywhere. And I know that Save Our Trees has really had a busy year, and we wanted to check in and see where we are. And we're here with Mary Ann Marbury, Terry McKenna, Ginger Woolridge, and a fifth one, Susan Wheatley. So we've got two people sharing one microphone. But thank you very much for inviting me into your kitchen for, I guess this is a kitchen talk.
Absolutely. It's where all the important things are done.
The invasive ivy is just such a problem, as I see. And I've seen how Save Our Trees has really evolved. I mean, I'm seeing the cleanups and the cut downs, if you will, or cut offs, whatever. You're in schools, you're in communities. It's just really seems to have really blossomed. There's a pun for you coming over the last year. I guess about a year ago, and I don't know whether you'll agree with me on this, but you guys were a casual bunch of crusaders. And this year you are a much more serious bunch of crusaders, and it's not so casual anymore because you have been absorbed or enveloped into the Anne Arundel County Watershed Stewards Academy as a program of theirs. Is that?
That's right. Yeah, and that actually happened just about a year ago. And we are very much enjoying the relationship. It's really been a wonderful union and supplement to what they already do. So they have a replant tree program, a repollinate program, and we're their Save Our Trees program. They're all about planting trees, repollinating, planting gardens, but we're all about saving the tree canopy.
How did that come about, the partnership with them?
So early on in prehistoric times, so when we first started 2 years ago, we knew that we had to have an accountant and an attorney, and we started thinking...
That's horrible, isn't it? Lawyers and accountants, they got to be everywhere.
We talked about, the potential of doing tax returns and financial statements and really going into business together and forming our own nonprofit.
Well, you were never, Save Our Trees as an entity, you were never a nonprofit,
That's
correct?
correct.
Okay.
That's correct, yeah. We just were a group of neighbors and friends, citizens that got together to do this good work. And but we quickly figured out that we really didn't want to spend a lot of time in the back room. We wanted to be out and about, doing our good work and not crunching numbers.
It's so funny when you talk about that. And I mean, we contribute to a lot of different things. And I'll use the American Cancer Society or the American Heart Association. I don't mean to diss on them, but I would much rather support an organization that is going to cut the ivy off of trees, or maybe buy a couple of basketballs for some kids to play in a public housing complex where it's really staying in the community, and that the bulk of whatever is donated goes to it. So, I laud your desire to, we don't want to be pushing the pencils, and we want to be out there with our tools.
Exactly. And coincidentally, I became a watershed steward within months of getting together with this wonderful group of individuals. And in addition, Nina Fisher, who's not with us today, but one of the founders, also a watershed steward, and in fact sits on the board of the Watershed Steward Academy. So we started thinking and scheming and trying to we thought, maybe we should approach them and see if there's a possibility of us becoming a program within the academy. And one thing led to another. We got together with the Chesapeake Legal Alliance, and they walked us through the whole process of what we needed to do to ultimately, make a pitch to the Watershed Stewards Academy. And one thing led to another, and a year ago, they welcomed us in.
Well, it makes a lot of sense because, what you're looking to do is, you're basically saving the tree canopy in the most basic sense for a healthy watershed. We can't do it without a tree canopy.
Right.
Exactly. No.
And to be honest with you, John, we are all retired, the five of us. We have what we're going to have. This is it. And the last thing we need is for any of us to be sued or have something happen that puts our families at risk. So we knew, because we were taking complete strangers on faith into the woods.
Giving them implements with sharp blades. And what could possibly go wrong?
Exactly. And also it occurred to us that we need to have people sign in and sign out, because most of our volunteers are over 60. And quite frankly, we need to make sure we all get out alive. So we had to just, first of all, get our house in order, that we all felt comfortable, that we were protecting our own households going out into the public in this way. So, and Marianne, we call her our chief paranoia officer, and we love her because of that.
Were you a lawyer by trade?
I wasn't, but I was a business owner.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah.
So there were many pitfalls. And
Yeah.
It's funny. My girlfriend's on the church council, and she's an attorney. Okay. And the prior pastor was like, "Oh gosh, we hate attorneys on the council because they're always they're a chief paranoia officer."
But it's necessary. So I'm happy to
and we love her for that and other things.
Well, it is. It's always the things that you don't think about that will trip you up in the end. Mm-hmm. There. Now, is the mission of Save Our Trees, is it still English ivy?
Yes, absolutely. That's really our first priority, is continuing to save the tree canopy from English ivy and other invasive vines. You should see the size of the bittersweet that's out there right now in Quiet Waters Park. Yeah, it's kind of crazy. So anything that's strangling the trees, we're tackling, but not kudzu yet. We're still focused on other.
But the English ivy is still the predominant issue that we've got here.
It is absolutely the predominant issue.
Where did that come from? Obviously it's an invasive species. Do we have, and it's been here for hundreds of years, I'm sure.
It came from, this is Ginger, it came from Europe. And we have been importing exotic plants since the 1600s, and even Asian plants came to us. George Washington brought in crepe myrtle in like the 1700s, because the Asian plants had already been imported to Europe. And then they come over here. Some of them, like crepe myrtle, is not invasive, but there are many that are, because they don't have the natural enemies that they would have where they would have been controlled in their own ecology.
Okay, so a non-native plant. Okay, you mentioned crepe myrtle. I'm assuming that's not a native plant to where we are here in Maryland, but that's fine because it has its own enemies and it sort of stays in itself.
It doesn't have anything. There isn't anything that allows it to become invasive. Like, one of the things that allows our plants here to become invasive is that the deer, for instance, don't eat English ivy, wineberry, liriope, a whole host of plants. So there's not that control on it. But they also don't happen to eat crepe myrtle. Now, the real problem with crepe myrtle, or any of the non-natives that aren't invasive, so they're in boxwood. There's some lovely plants that are fine. They don't get out into our ecology. But what the problem is, that our insects, especially like when you have a butterfly, for instance, that insect in its larval form is an entirely different animal than when it pupates and becomes a butterfly. The butterfly only needs to support, the adult only needs sugar water to live. But that pupa, that caterpillar, requires native plant material that it has evolved with through the millennia, because plants protect themselves. They can't run, so they protect themselves with toxins. So they largely are like 98% specific to a particular leaf from a particular plant. So that's why the monarch butterfly needs the milkweed. They don't need the flower. It's the caterpillar that requires the leaf.
Interesting. Okay.
And so if we don't have native plants, we don't have the caterpillars that require that plant. And then there was a study done by a fellow named, a doctoral student of a fellow named Doug Tallamy, and they did a study where they studied a chickadee clutch of eggs and the parents bringing caterpillars to the baby. And caterpillars are perfect food for baby birds because they have fat, protein, other nutrients, and they're also big and soft, so they can get down the
gullet.
The gullet, yeah. And it turns out that to raise one clutch of chickadees, which only weigh like a third of an ounce, it took 6,000 to 9,000 caterpillars.
Oh, wow.
And that's just to get them flying. After that, the parents continue to feed the babies for like 24 days. So without a population of native plants, you don't have the native caterpillars, so you don't have the baby birds. So it's yeah.
There's a snowball effect. You talked about Doug Tallamy. I mean, he's great. I did a podcast with him when he came in front of, I know you guys were at the Homeowners Expo doing a thing.
Mm-hmm.
He was down there a couple of years ago, and I remember talking to him. I said, well, what about all these city dwellers that, don't have, I mean, he's a big proponent. He's not a big proponent of grass. It's, he says it's the worst waste of land anywhere.
Grass is the weed,
Yeah. But I said, what can a city dweller do? And it's funny. He says, if you've got a balcony or a windowsill, you're good. It doesn't have to be big. You don't have to have. And he's at University of Delaware, right?
Yeah.
Yes.
I think so. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But fabulous, interesting guy.
Yeah.
Interesting guy. Now, you had said that the mission of Save Our Trees is pretty much to act, educate, and advocate. Okay. And the acting is the easy part. That's where you're out there hoping that you're not getting sued because you're giving people all sorts of things to cut things off of trees and we get out alive. Educate. I mean, certainly this podcast works to that. And then you've been out there and advocate. And I know that you have, obviously some avocation probably landed you the part with the Watershed Stewards Academy, but I know that you've worked with the City of Annapolis and certainly the county and the fact that you're in Quiet Waters Park. And I mean, there's a lot of advocacy that has really paid off for you.
Right. So to advocate is, in my little brain, is to stand up for. Right. To me, that's what it means. I'm going to advocate for, I'm going to stand up for. And one thing we have learned is that we are the right organization at the right time. And the timing part, I think, is a big part of our success because people are aware. People don't necessarily know what to do, but they are aware that they should be doing something. And so when we advocate, what we're doing is we are asking them to take a moment and understand the problem and then to act with us to solve the problem. So advocating isn't always political. Advocating for is stand up for. And it's just, it's interesting. We approach the schools or we approach communities or garden clubs and all kinds of different organizations. So we are advocating for just the simplest thing: cut the ivy.
Well, it's funny. I mean, you talked about the right time, the right place, and with the right message is the sort of the third angle of, and that's in any number of things that you work for. But you have done a remarkable job. I know that the city, I talked with Brian Callahan, and they're all about it. I know that the county, not specifically to your organization, but there was somebody that retired, I believe, a park ranger that
Bud Reeves.
Yes, that this was his mission to do. And I remember when I read that, I was like, oh, this is Susan Save Our Trees, and again, I think probably that is a lot because of your advocacy to be able to go out and do something like that.
Yeah.
The county has a new subcommittee that goes over all of the groups that deal with land now, that will address things like invasive plants. So that's new this year.
That's awesome.
It's really awesome, and I think we'll hopefully continue to support the county through the decades.
Well, Ginger, I mean, you're kind of an expert. I mean, you've written a book and everything else. But, I mean, how is Anne Arundel County doing compared to some of our neighbors? Okay, invasive ivy is not invasive to Anne Arundel County. I mean, it's invasive to Prince George's and Montgomery, I'm sure, and Howard and Baltimore and everywhere else. It's not just located here. How are we doing?
Well, I think this recent development of having a subcommittee that there aren't different silos like Parks and Rec or Department of Public Works. They were working. They didn't have an overarching program around invasives. So now they'll have the opportunity to identify like hotspots. There are a lot of volunteers like us that, citizens, we know that there isn't a county budget to get rid of invasives. I mean, there just isn't enough money.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
But there are a lot of volunteers that can be leveraged if the county can help direct where they want the work done.
Yes.
Yeah.
And that's where your committee comes in, your commission comes in to be able to work with Parks and Rec and with the other, and Public Works and the entities and say, hey, we've got a problem here, let's bring it in. Right. And the thing I will say too is that you can volunteer. I mean, you guys are all volunteers. There's no big paychecks. I didn't see the Lamborghinis or Porsches out front when I got here.
That's in the garage.
Mine's around the corner.
You don't have to be a tree hugger to get involved in this, which I think is nice. And I've had some friends that have come out on some of your events, and it's just a nice day in the park or in the woods, and you do meet some very interesting people, and you're doing a small part to make the community that we all live in, they all share, a lot better.
We're trying to make it Annapolis's new winter sport. So the sailors, if it's too cold to sail, which I mean, it's never too cold to sail, but it's really great to be able to go out in the woods on a Saturday or Sunday morning, and
in
really,
February.
it's the best is in the winter because there isn't poison ivy or that sort of thing, and the ivy is very apparent then because it is evergreen.
Oh, that's true. That's true.
Yeah.
That's true.
So it's easy to find.
Yeah.
You don't have to worry about falling down a hole. There's a lot of benefits to doing this in the winter.
Yeah.
Yeah. And believe it or not, you work up a sweat.
Yeah.
No matter what. I've always walked out of there soaking, wringing wet and just thrilled with the day. Yeah.
Now, I know at one point you had and I don't remember what it was last time we talked, you had a goal of saving X number of trees. And I can't remember what it was, but I'm sure that's probably changed. So where do we stand now?
So our first goal was 500.
Yeah.
Our second goal was 2,000. And then our third goal, which is what we're working towards right now, is to save 5,000 in just 2 years. And we're at 4,499 as of yesterday. So we're going to definitely meet that 5,000 goal.
And to your listeners, please go out, take your clippers, cut the ivy at the base of a tree in your yard, then go to saveourtreestogether@gmail.com and report your number. Because if we influenced you, then that tree counts towards our goal.
There you go. Let's talk about it. Okay, somebody's listening and they say, oh, gosh, I've got this invasive ivy on my tree.
Yeah.
And I think we can all kind of understand. I mean, essentially, this is strangling the tree. It's got all sorts of other issues as it goes up. It makes it more of like a giant wind sail that's more easily toppled in winds and soft soil and everything else. But okay, we can go out here and look and say, okay, we've got a bunch of ivy growing on our tree. What do we do to get rid of it? I mean, what's the process? You said just cut off at the bottom?
The goal of Save Our Trees is save the tree. The goal is not necessarily to get rid of the ivy. I mean, we want that to happen, but we haven't yet seen, Mother Nature has not shown us the path to make that happen. The ivy will come back. So, but we have to save the trees while we're in the process of figuring this out. So basically, we're just asking people to go out and somewhere between your ankles and your knees, cut the ivy the whole way around and pull it away from the tree and create what we call a ring of life about 2 feet away from the tree. Then the ivy up in the tree will die on its own. Don't try to pull it out. Just let it die on its own. But, I have been pulling ivy out of my yard for 35 years, and I never planted it.
Wow.
I have neighbors' fences that are covered in the ivy, and so all we can do is ask them, please cut the ivy before it berries, because once it berries, the birds eat the berries, and then they send the berries everywhere. But if you cut the ivy before it berries, then at least we can sort of hold it in one place a little bit.
So essentially, we're just cutting a swath of a bare spot around
the tree,
trunk of the tree,
just to give it more time.
And the upper ivy is going to die off, but the lower ivy is going to continue to go. So I say, hey, look, here's a tree, and grab onto it again and start again.
So rip it out if you can. I tell you, it is very, if you like wallpapering because you turn around and you have that immediate impact and you go, oh my gosh, I've accomplished something, put your boots on and a pair of gloves in the rain and go out and you can rip that ivy out. It is so easy to rip out when the ground is wet. And you just roll it up in a bundle and set it in the side and just let it rot.
Very simple to do.
Yes.
Perfect thing for a Saturday or a Sunday morning if you go take a look at your garden.
And it's great fun with your kids. You know, it really is.
And you get to use big tools out in the woods.
True. And our website has instructions on how to remove it and how to hold an event. And a lot of good resources about native plants too.
Okay, well, a question for you then. I guess your website was saveourtreestogether.org. Is that still effective, even though you're still with the Watershed Stewards Academy?
Yes.
Okay, cool.
So we are a program within. I mean, we keep them informed, and they help us, and there's this great relationship. But we're pretty independent. We're let them know.
Why should things change?
Yeah, I mean, I think they're just thrilled that we're just getting the job done, and they have been great in supporting us. But they don't micromanage us.
Yeah, no. I just didn't know whether they moved it onto their website because I mean, obviously, I know that you can turn around and you can accept money now.
Yes,
we can.
Yes,
as and we may not all have the tools and stuff. And I know that you've got to buy tools. I mean, there's probably not a very huge expense for what the program is that you offer. I mean, I can go out with my saws and my pruners and everything else, but somebody may not have it. But
is it appropriate for me to give a shout out to a local business in this?
Sure.
Okay. So these bags showed up at one of our events, these paper bags, and it was from K&B, True Value.
Talk about them. We don't like Jared.
Well, but the bag showed up. So I was in there one day shopping, and I said, is the manager here? Well, the owner's over there. I didn't know Jared. I didn't know anything about his background. I just went over. I'm Susan with Save Our Trees. We really want to thank you for the bags. And by the way, we're not going to ask you to give us tools, but will you give us a good price on tools? If we can find some money to buy tools. Well, sure enough, Mother Nature provided. We wound up with $500, I think, and we called Jared, and he ordered tools for a great price. And so that's where we went and bought our tools. Local business.
This really makes me happy because, I mean, we all live in a community. Okay. We are all neighbors. I mean, I don't live over here where you live, but we are neighbors in a grander scheme.
Yes, we are.
And we all have to live together.
Yes, we do.
And that's where it all starts, on Main Street, and whether that's at K&B True Value. And Jared, I will say, is probably one of the most proactive local business owners. Very rarely says no to a request, and I know that he does wonders for the schools every year with the not Save Our Schools, but Cash for Schools.
Oh, okay.
It does about $30,000 a year.
Wow!
Partners with a couple other local businesses. We were part of it, and as you buy something, you can say, "Hey, do you want to donate?" A couple extra bucks to your school?
Yeah. Okay.
And everybody does it just like $30,000 a year. So I mean, it's
awesome
for the PTAs, which are always strapped for cash.
Yeah. Exactly.
So that's pretty fantastic.
Yeah. And you say we have to live together, but this is really enjoyable. It really is.
Yeah.
Like when we partner with the city, we partnered with schools. We're in the city parks, we're in county parks, and it is really fun. And it's interesting how much support as citizens we get from government.
Yes.
People want to lean on government. No, taxes are too high and all of that, but citizens are often the people that bring the issues to government.
Yes.
And sometimes they want to support a certain initiative, but they can't because they don't have citizens behind it.
Exactly.
So we just have had, whether it's with business owners or government or schools, I mean, it's really been fun to work with all these different entities.
Yes.
I think it's very interesting that, I mean, you said most governments would like to work on an initiative, but they don't have the cash or the ability to do it, and they may not even be aware of it. Again, that's just exactly what this was. I mean, I never noticed the ivies before I had spoken with you, Susan, a year ago, and I imagine that once you're out doing your events, that there are people at Quiet Waters Park that are just there for cooking a hamburger or hiking in the tree or biking or something like that. okay, so what are all you people with implements of destruction doing here? And, there's your advocacy.
Yes.
This is very cool. I'm going to check it out. Maybe I'll come next time.
You know what happens is, because I really want Terry and Marianne to speak to this too, because we wind up advocating for a lot more than just the trees, just by the nature of who we are. Like right now, we are really advocating for our students in our public high schools. They are incredible, and we really want to give them a shout out. And, just as a little introduction to what they're going to share with you, I met Terry initially because I posted on Nextdoor, Does Anybody Care? This was before Ginger and I met and had our first meeting about all this. And she said, yes, I care. I'm at Quiet Waters Park. I've been doing this for a long time. Can we meet for a coffee, right? So Terry has this great relationship with the people who take care of Quiet Waters Park. And we have been working with Annapolis High School, and I want Terry and Marianne to talk to you about just how much we love these kids. We just love them. Yeah.
Well, kids today, too, also are a lot more in tune with the environment. And
they got it.
Let's keep this planet alive. Our age folks, we didn't have to worry about that necessarily.
We didn't know.
We didn't know that we needed to worry about it. But now they are. And it's, it's concerning. You can argue the whole global warming stuff back and forth. But we are damaging our planet. And this is a great option and opportunity to do something to make it a little bit better.
They are all about it. So last May, the head of the IB program for Anne Arundel County approached us. She just happens to be a neighbor of one of our founders, Nina, and she said, I'd love to bring into our program what you're doing. And so we got together, had a meeting, met with a couple of the teachers at Annapolis High School in the IB program, and we said let's form a partnership and see if we can get something off the ground for this year. So what we ended up doing is we went into the school, actually Susan and I initially, and talked to students in the classroom about the issue of English ivy and what we do. And we also did a presentation in the auditorium to 100 students and collaborated to basically construct a native oasis in Quiet Waters. So over 3 marking periods, we had the students come out on field trips. The first one, they removed invasives. It was not sure how big the area is, but probably, what do you think?
I would say 150 by 100.
Yeah. And they were all about it. Got into this particular area, not just ivy, but all the invasives that were in the area, and cleared that whole parcel out. Then they came back in March and began to plant natives, and finished up for their last marking period in April. And it was just a fabulous venture between us, Quiet Waters Park, and the school. And in addition to that, and Terry can speak to this, but Quiet Waters sort of got wind of what we were doing. We got permission, but they didn't really know the extent of the project. Got wind of it and really supported us.
Yeah, the Friends of Quiet Waters donated money to buy the plants that were planted into the native area. And it's just been this great collaboration between the rangers, the horticulturist, Friends of Quiet Waters Park.
You've really established a network.
Yeah.
When you look, okay, and for those that aren't aware, all of the 2 main county parks, I get Downs and I don't know if Fort Smallwood has it, but Downs certainly has. I know Quiet Waters have it. They've got these nonprofit arms that are formed by citizens as Friends of Quiet Waters Park, which helps above and beyond, the maintenance of the park. Okay, the county takes care of maintaining, the roads and the paths, and if a tree falls in the middle of the forest, they probably know if it makes noise. I don't know, but but they take care of that. But it's all of the extra stuff. In New Orleans they call it a leñafe. It's just a little something extra that the friends of these parks take care of. you merge that with the schools that are into that. And I was at the Earth Day they did at Annapolis High School, and I was amazed at the number of kids. And it was just it was a campus cleanup, so it wasn't. But I was amazed at the number of kids that were out on a Saturday. I mean, come on, let's face it. I didn't want to be in school on a Saturday.
Yeah.
But they were cleaning up. I mean, the bags of trash they picked up. I mean, back on the hiking trails and the running trails. It's wonderful that you've been able to assemble these people together to work all collaboratively.
Yeah. It's really been great. And the students are so much fun. I mean, they turn, in addition to working very hard, they turn everything into a fun event. I can't even, we cleaned up, had a ivy removal day over at Bush Annapolis Library, and the JROTC cadets came out to join us for that. And it was a fun event, to say the least. They found some shopping carts stashed in the woods back there.
Sure, of course.
An old bed. And old beds, yeah. And they figured out how to get all the invasives into the shopping carts to make it easier to get them into the dumpster that we were using to throw everything away.
Five of them cleared more English ivy in an hour than 10 of us could do in a day. I mean, it was... We just had pack in all.
The only issue we had with them is they said, "Can we please climb the trees? We want to climb the trees."
That's what you get when you invite the Army light into your thing. I know.
I kept saying, "I'm watching you. Do not climb that tree."
The paranoia is under there.
I know, that's right.
And you all have, we've done a lot of work with Broadneck High School as well.
Yeah.
Also Broadneck, yes. And they've been an excellent resource for both us and for themselves. They have an environmental program, designated environmental program at Broadneck. And we've had several events with Broadneck. They've been fantastic. So Broadneck, Annapolis High School, we've just started to do some work with Southern High School. And we have big plans to really get into all of the high schools in the county.
And just to say, they came to us. So at one of our events, we had a student, and I just happened to say, "Where do you go to school?" He says, "Broadneck." And I said, "Oh, can you get us into the school?" He made it all happen. Annapolis High School, it was the IB had, they came to us and introduced us to the teachers there. Southern got started because there was a young student who came from Southern High School to one of our events. Then she went to her environmental science teacher and said, "Can we ask them to come?" And we just went down there, and they have a little graveyard on the property. That's the third graveyard that we've worked around, right? So we were also reaching out to those who preceded us. And we talked to them sternly about the English ivy they brought over. But anyway, yeah. But it's...
So you found the source. That's good.
Yeah. But it is. But I just really want to give kudos. It is these students that came to us and asked us to do something. And it's just phenomenal.
I will say that the low-hanging fruit is the bad kids. And that's, there's bad adults too. And I am so encouraged. I sit on the ICST board at Annapolis High, and I am so encouraged every time I work with these kids.
They're great.
The ideas they have, the desire they have, the gumption that they, the can-do attitude.
Yes.
And yes, when you get a community of, thousands of people like in Annapolis High School or,
any high school.
In any town or community, I mean, you're going to have some issues and stuff like that. And unfortunately, a lot of people think that that's like the low hanging fruit. Let's talk about, I talked with charting careers.
Well, I would tell you, we'd never seen it. So we know that it's everywhere. We've never seen it. We've spent time in the hallways. We've sat, in the classrooms with the teachers, and these kids are, they care, and they want to do something. They want to be part of something. And this is such an easy offer that we give them.
And you've really put out your tentacles everywhere. I mean, the parks, the schools, the libraries, the, private property, the organ.
Ginger just spoke to the Philadelphia Garden Club. How about that?
I love the flower show every year.
Yeah. But who are the garden clubs locally that we've spoken with? Not me.
Hillsmere, Naval Academy Garden Club, right?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Academy.
Hillsmere. Who else? The Moonflower Garden Club was at my house yesterday, and a woman came up to me and said, Oh, because I talk about the book, but I also say that one of the things that has taken me here is that I see that our natives are so overwhelmed by these invasives. And this one woman comes up to me and she goes, "I'm with Friends of the Anne Arundel County Parks."
Oh, okay. Yeah.
So
That's how it starts.
yeah, so we're just out and about. We have wonderful adult volunteers too.
Yeah.
Weird off the wall question. Are any of you a member of the Facebook group Dirty Annapolis?
Yes.
Okay. I just wanted to make sure that you were aware of it in case you weren't. It was like, because that I'm going to say there's a ripe audience for you.
Yes.
You're right there
Yes.
for sure. The other thing I might suggest is to reach out to Leadership Anne Arundel, and they have it's a year-long program where they take a day a month and they deep dive into issues in the county. And they do have an environmental day as well one time, and Homestead Gardens tends to sponsor it, and you can get up and see. And they did talk about invasive plants and stuff like that, but I mean, it's not a full day, but to be able to get out there and speak with them and say, hey, this is the ivy, that would be something
Great
That is great. We do also want to give a shout out to the Annapolis Rotary.
Right.
Yes.
They invited us to come and speak about a year ago, I guess. And then they volunteered on Earth Day. I mean, we didn't reach out to them, right? They reached out to us. And so we did a big project with them at Quiet Waters Park on Earth Day. They've invited us to lunch next week, and they have a little present for us. So we'll see what that is. So I don't know.
You get to hobnob at the yacht club.
I know. I have to clean the dirt from under my fingernails.
No, you need that. You didn't. Proof of concept.
So and also beyond the schools, beyond the city, beyond the garden clubs, now we're starting to get into a few businesses, and we have actually an event with M&T Bank. So they reached out to us, and there are a few others that are beginning to reach out because they have volunteer initiatives. The banks in particular do, and so we're reaching a different community. And we've said from the very beginning how we want to reach into all communities, not just the environmental community, because sometimes the environmental community, we speak to each other and in the same environmental speak.
Sure, you're
and, exactly. So we are really, reaching out to as many organizations and people as we can.
Well, it goes back to sit there and say that you don't necessarily need to be a tree hugger to care.
Exactly.
And I say that in a loving sense, but I mean, you do have to have respect for the trees and our environment and everything else, but you don't have to be this rampant environmentalist.
Exactly.
Such a little act can make such a big difference.
And people get it. I mean, they know the importance of trees. To your point, that you don't have to be a tree hugger to be a tree lover.
That's right.
Yeah.
There's a bumper sticker.
Right.
There's a bumper.
And being outside is a personal benefit.
Yes.
If we want to be more selfish, even, it's wonderful to work outside.
Yeah.
Fresh air, exercise. The list goes on and on and on. What's next for Save Our Trees? Where are you guys?
Well, before we go to next, I do feel like we have to round this conversation out by mentioning two people. Wonderful woman who showed up in our life, Mary, and Mary has taken over our website, and she is amazing. So again, we've always said Mother Nature is the founder here. She has handpicked this team, and she sent us Mary, and she's doing an amazing job, and she's with St. Andrew's Catholic Church, and this weekend we have an event there at the church, and we're going to be cutting ivy. But then the other one is Devin, and Devin is a Rotaract, and I was asked to come and speak to the Rotaract group, and here I am talking to all these young people, and all we've been seeing at our events, mostly, not all, but mostly are really people 60 and older. And I said, we need to reach the youth, and we need somebody who will do some social media for us and who will do some Instagram for us. And she said, I'll do it. Well, I mean, please, help me explain, how do we to have people check us out on Instagram? What is it?
They follow us.
I need people to follow us on Instagram. But
bring up the little computer machine. And
I mean, the truth is, this is what I love about this, is I can just do my thing and I don't have to have this pressure, because we just ask and people show up. And Devin has done an amazing job on that. So You know, in then going over to your question of what's in the future, I don't know how you all want to answer it, but I'm going to tell you, I have no idea, but it's going to be great.
Fair.
So far, so good.
So far, so good.
So I will say one thing about the future that we've really just started to scratch the surface on a little bit as a team. And that's what you were asking about, John, is doing more of these kind of restoration projects and really teaming with Watershed Stewards Academy so that we save the trees and then we also get rid of the ivy and we also plant natives and that we can really start helping to drive that. I think that that's where we would all like to go while we continue to save the trees and stay focused on that.
And that these then become community events.
Exactly.
We started it. I mean, I would say our Quiet Waters Oasis with Annapolis High School was the start of what we see as our future.
Yes.
You know, we want to create native oasis, you know, all through the city and Anne Arundel County.
Yeah. And we were invited by the city and other organizations to come into Robinwood, and we actually went. We tried to get a day organized, and the weather and the rain and the craziness involved, but that's a big plan for in the fall. And we want to just be inclusive everywhere in the city, because we really believe that every citizen in the city is our family. And
there are underserved neighborhoods.
Yeah.
Certainly.
Yeah.
So we can help there.
Yeah.
Certainly. Well, I think you never underestimate the power of a small group of people to make a big difference.
Yeah.
I spoke with a guy named, I keep drawing a blank on his last name, but his first name is Jitendra, and he's a native of India, and he's works in tech. And when he was home during COVID up in Crofton, he said, why? You know, and looking at the food scarcity and everything else. So he went to Skip Auld at the library and said, I want part of your land of the library in Crofton. And they developed, I think it's a 6,000 square feet community garden.
Really?
Wow.
And they're growing in there, and people, and at the end of the year, they donate to the food bank.
Great.
At the end of the year, they have a group communal party where people bring dishes made of the stuff they've grown. And this was just a guy that was sitting at home saying, what do I need to do? And now it's a huge thing.
Maybe we should stop worrying about what's happening in the world and start just taking care of our neighbors.
Be a different world, wouldn't it?
You know what? It would just be a happier world. We all get to see the product of our efforts. We get to meet our neighbors. You know, it's...
Yeah, I had the conversation with somebody just yesterday. I said, you know, it's so much easier to be nice than it is to be a jerk. You know, you've got to think about being a jerk. Okay, so now... how can I piss her off? You know, versus just good morning.
Yes.
Yeah. How are you?
Yeah.
It's a shame, and I hope it changes. And I think that
we're seeing some change.
Our experience with Save Our Trees has just been so positive. I mean, everybody's enthusiastic. You know, there's no negativity.
Well, I think part of that is that you also have a pretty neutral type of the thing. I mean, who hates trees?
Yes.
Exactly.
Maybe a developer here or there, but that's,
And by the way, just a shout out to Brian Callahan. Mm-hmm. I said to Brian, what can I do to support my city for the next 30 years? And he said, save our trees.
Well, that's something that the city's also had for years. I mean, when Ellen was mayor, I mean, that was, the let's get the canopy up. Let's get the canopy. I mean, we are a tree city, whichever organization does do that. I mean, we're getting there as far as, the paths and the connectivity and stuff like that. I know the mayor is working on that.
Funding's very limited, though. We have an urban forester who's an army of one.
We did go to the city council meeting and we put our stake in the ground and said, you said that the new goal is 50% tree canopy by 2040. And we're letting you know, we just put our stake in the ground on that. Because we figure if we went and said that, they'd have to do it. But they want to do it. They need to know they have partners.
And they need resources.
And they need resources.
So. No, I get it. They can't send somebody out from Public Works to trim the trees, but you've got an army and Save Our Trees that's ready to come out.
And they have been great. The city's been fabulous. Yeah.
Well, SaveOurTreesTogether.org is the website. Ways that we can help you. Now that you guys are an official nonprofit, we can throw money your way through the Watershed Stewards Academy. I'm presuming that when you donate through them, you can sort of earmark it for the Save Our Trees program.
That's correct.
Volunteer. You can, again, go to SaveOurTreesTogether.org. Come on out to one of the events. They're planned pretty much all year round. This is after the dog days of summer, I guess.
Correct. But we're still going to be cutting ivy. We're just not going to be going deep into the woods. We're going to find trees here and there on the edge of properties that we can help. Maybe speak a lot. Ask us to come and speak at your community. It's a great time for us to have a conversation with people.
And we know that everybody in the county has some sort of a homeowners association or something, it seems.
Yes.
Or some kind of a group or a Facebook group or something like that. Let them know.
Yes.
Were you, as far as you're speaking, I know that you spoke at the Homeowners Expo a couple of months ago. I said in February. Do you guys, I mean, can you do like a Zoom live type thing? Like, I mean, if I've got, we mentioned Dirty Annapolis.
We did. I've done it.
So
yeah.
We did that for Nature Sacred, if you're familiar with that organization. We did a Zoom educational event for them.
Mm-hmm.
So if you are on just any kind of a community type of a room or a community on Facebook or something like that. Well, no, I'm just saying that, if you're on there, let them know that there's the ability to be able to, that you can come into their living room.
Yes.
And pretty much say what you're doing.
And, we did do a Zoom that we put out on Nextdoor, remember? And we had 15 or 20 people. And that's how we wound up with the lady from the Eastern Shore that is at St. Andrews that triggered that because she was,
that's right.
And Mary were on that Zoom.
And periodically, Susan has arranged talks at the library on West Street as well.
Yes.
Okay.
Oh, we had 50 people show up for our last one.
That's awesome.
Jared came and spoke.
Rob
Savage, Brian Adams,
the Urban Forester.
Bartlett Trees. We had them come, and 50 people showed up for that event.
That's wild.
And then we did a follow-up with those who wanted to then plan. And we had maybe 8 or 9 people show up for that. So, yeah.
And one really good project is going to come out of
in the
middle of the city.
Oh, yeah. Listen, we're happy if 3 people show up because we figure they're the right 3 people.
It's so funny. I mean, I talk to, when we do these podcasts and stuff like that, I talk to people and I said, if you get one person that knows about you that never knew about you before.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Was it worth your 30 minutes or 40 minutes to sit down and talk with me?
Yes.
I mean, there's not a cost, but I mean, I'm like, if just one more person and, again, it's the right people, and you never know when you're going to get that right person.
No. And you don't know where they are.
Right.
And if the room is filled with people, maybe that one person would be a little timid to come up and talk to you.
Well, Elon Musk, if you're listening, these guys could use some help. Or Mackenzie Bezos, if you're another good one that's throwing money away.
And if they want to know what we want, is we want PSAs on the television. We want PSAs on the radio. We want public service announcements that address this.
Yeah.
And that's where we need money.
Guys, I want to thank you so much. We've got Marian Marbury, Terry McKenna, Ginger Woolridge, who wrote a wonderful book that I'm going to read a little bit later. And, of course, Susan Wheatley, who is are spearheading Save Our Trees. And, again, saveourtreestogether.org to learn a whole lot more. And get involved. Look in your backyard. You're going to be surprised when you see what's in your backyard, if you have a backyard. If you're in a high-rise apartment, maybe not. But as you're driving down the road, and as Susan, you told me that about a year ago, it was just, I go down B&A Boulevard going, oh my gosh.
Yeah.
And you just don't realize it. And at some point, that ivy is going to, choke out what we have. And we've got to do something about it. It's plain and simple.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Joe.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you, John.
Thanks for listening to this week's Local Business Spotlight. Please make sure to visit eyeonannapolis.net for all your local news, events, and opinion. And in case you haven't already, please subscribe to the Eye on Annapolis Daily News Brief, where we bring you all the day's local news direct to your phone, tablet, or computer in about 10 minutes. It comes to you at 6 a.m. every Monday through Friday, and you can subscribe on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.